What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch back here with another NFL rankings video. In this video, I rank the top 20 linebackers in the NFL entering the 2021 NFL season. That is the best linebackers in the NFL today. Before I give you my top 20 linebackers in the NFL, make sure that you do spike that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more NFL rankings just like this. And check out Patreon. Link is in the description for the rest of the list. Numbers 21 through 32. Kicking off the top 20 linebackers in the NFL at number 20, Joe Schobert of the Jacksonville Jags. Joe Schobert was awesome in Cleveland a year ago with tons of interceptions and big plays. He then gets signed by Jacksonville and, of course, as any other player would, falls off the radar of most NFL fans. But I will say this, Joe Schobert took his playmaking ability from Cleveland to Jacksonville. It is still there. It still exists. Was he quite the same player he was in 2019? No, but he was still good at turning the football over, creating plays in the passing game, creating big time interceptions, forced fumbles, making big tackles. He's not the greatest in the run game. He's not the most physical linebacker, but he has very good movement skills. He's very intelligent. He's great in zone coverage. I feel like Joe Schobert is about to have his best season in Jacksonville this season. At number 19, SHAQ Thompson of the Carolina Panthers. I'm a big fan of SHAQ Thompson. I always have been. I feel like he's one of the more underrated linebackers in the NFL because Luke Kuechly has been in Carolina. Now that he's gone, somebody has to take the mantle. And I'm not saying SHAQ Thompson is Luke Kuechly, but he's a darn good athlete. He can flow sideline to sideline. Of course, this is a guy in college who played a little bit of running back. He has a lot of physicality. He has a good ability to read the run game and shoot gaps, and he's pretty good in coverage. I'd like to see him develop within this new scheme in Carolina, but he takes on a lot of snaps. He's on every down, every situation. They ask him to do a ton. So SHAQ Thompson, to me, is a guy that's very valuable to his team and makes the top 20 linebackers in the NFL. At number 18, Blake Martinez of the New York Giants. Blake Martinez last season and the last couple of seasons in Green Bay were not so hot in my opinion. Yes, he put up the tackle numbers, but his efficiency, his ability to impact the passing game was not very good. And just overall, he was a guy that had those tackle numbers without a lot of actually impactful plays. But Blake Martinez this year, as a part of the Giants, made impactful plays, game-changing plays from the middle linebacker position. And it's one of the biggest things I look for in a linebacker. I felt like Blake Martinez brought stability to the middle of the defense for the Giants. Is he the most athletic guy in the world at the position? No, but he might be the most fearless guy at this position. He flies around. He is absolutely fearless. He has so much guts. And of course, the guy every single season is going to play every single snap. He's going to be one of the leaders in tackles because he's just all over the field in coverage versus the run. It doesn't really matter. And I feel he actually fits this Giants system fairly well. He contributed a little bit as a pass rusher as well on stunts and blitzes. I think Blake Martinez has found a home in New York, and I'm looking to see what he does in his second season with the Giants. Number 17, Jerome Baker of the Miami Dolphins, another very underrated name in the NFL. He just had a breakout season this past season. Jerome Baker had 7 sacks for the Miami Dolphins and Brian Flores defense. He is one of these linebackers who's in a system where they ask him to get uphill, they ask him to create pressure, on big downs, and he's been able to do that. He's been able to utilize his speed and his athleticism to create pressure. Now, I do wonder how this will change because they did trade for McKinney, who is more of a Dante Hightower type linebacker, which is why I felt they might add him into the mix. But of course, the Patriots had a Jamie Collins and a Dante Hightower, so I feel like Brian Flores could find a way to maneuver and utilize both in his packages and in his stunts. But Jerome Baker's finally broken out because he's just become a smarter player. He's been better in coverage. He's been better at reading the play. And I feel he's found a home in this scheme. For linebackers, a lot of it is scheme fit. And I think Jerome Baker has found that scheme fit. He's always had the athleticism, but he's starting to put the pieces together. And again, when you can attack the pass game the way that he does, with 7 sacks, you're going to be in my top 20. At number 16, Alexander Johnson of the Denver Broncos. Alexander Johnson, quite simply, is just a very stable player. He's not super flashy. He's not super athletic. He's fairly big. He's got some good size to him, but he's very smart, and he does everything Vic Fangio asks him to do. Plays on every snap, plays in coverage, plays the run well, doesn't blitz too often, but he's active everywhere in every facet, and he's just always in the right position. And with Vic Fangio's defense, that's very, very crucial to success because he is absolutely counting on those middle linebackers to make plays and always make plays in that middle of the field. Alexander Johnson, quite simply, is a solid linebacker that you can rely on each and every snap, each and every week, and each and every game. That's why he's on this list. At number 15, Zach Cunningham of the Houston Texans. Cunningham is perhaps the best run stuffer in the NFL from the middle linebacker position. Absolutely phenomenal year after year at creating run stops. Whether that's just bursting through the hole and creating a tackle for loss, a big hit over the middle, or just finding his way through traffic, eating up a running back. That's what he's great at. That's what he's phenomenal at. So I have to rank him a certain spot pretty high on this list. But then when you come to the other aspects of the game, he's not very good in coverage. He's not super fast. He's not super athletic. And that really means he struggles in man or zone because he can't really fill up space quickly, right? Or flow like that, like other linebackers in this league. But when it comes to defeating blocks and hitting running backs and stopping the run, this guy's the best. At number 14, Jayon Brown of the Tennessee Titans. You guys know I'm a big fan of Jayon Brown. Now, his stats weren't as explosive as they've been in the past, as Brown has typically been a player that's filled up the stat sheet in all areas, whether it's coverage with interceptions, sacks, blitzing the quarterback, or tackles. He typically fills it up. This year, not as much, but he's shown that he can be versatile, he can move wherever the team needs him, and he can kind of play any role the team needs him to play, which is what I appreciate about his game. There's other players in this linebacking core that are very one-dimensional. When I look at a Landry, he's a pass rusher. When I look at an Evans, he's kind of more of a run defender, maybe a little bit of a blitzer. Brown can be everything. He's the guy that can drop back into coverage. He's the guy that can blitz if you need to. He's the guy that can flow sideline to sideline, and he is the speed of the middle of this defense. Now, the Titans defense wasn't as good last year. I think part of his play did dip because of that, but I still think he's one of the more underrated guys in the league, and I feel like he didn't sign for enough money. I think he's way more valuable, and I think the Titans have a steal on their hands with Mr. Brown. At number 13, Matt Milano of the Buffalo Bills. Huge fan of Matt Milano. Always have been. Probably always will be. And I remember I ranked him fairly highly last year, or at least I put him on this list when a lot of people were like, whoa, what are you doing, bro? Like, Matt Milano, he's not that good, is he? But then you watch him, then you appreciate him. And I think where we really appreciate Matt Milano is when he doesn't play. Like, that's really where we appreciate him. because the rest of the defense suffers without Matt Milano. Now, that's one of his downsides. He gets hurt a little bit too often. He's a little bit injury prone, but Matt Milano is a superb traditional 4-3 linebacker. He's excellent in coverage. I think he's one of the best in coverage in the game, whether it's in zone or man, because he's extremely intelligent, but he's also deceptively athletic. He has a very good feel for offenses and route combinations, and also just overall covering tight ends and running backs. He's very good at it. He's good versus the run. He's not phenomenal. He isn't asked to do it as much, as that's kind of more of the Edmonds role of things. But I feel he's the far superior linebacker on this team, and he is the unsung hero of the Bills defense. At number 12, Devin Bush of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Devin Bush is one of the fastest players in the middle of a defense in the league. We saw Devin Bush when he was removed from the Steelers. Again, another linebacker being removed from a defense. You saw a dip in the play of the defense. Obviously, there are good players. It's going to hurt the defense. But when you remove that speed and that athleticism and that playmaking ability from the middle of a defense, everything else starts to kind of hinder and hurt and not be as efficient or effective. And with Devin Bush, I just really like the way that he can flow across a field, the way that he sees the run game, the way that he can really pick it apart, because he's not the biggest guy. He's not going to really be able to take on a lot of offensive linemen in the hole head first and just hold them up. He's going to have to use his quickness, right? He's going to have to use his speed. He's going to have to use his acceleration. And he utilizes all of that very, very well. What he also is getting better at is in coverage. I expect Devin Bush to be much better this year because he's simply getting smarter. He's getting more aware, and he's getting more intelligent at the game of football. At number 11, Myles Jack of the Jacksonville Jags. Myles Jack had a dip in his play in 2019, but he came back strong in 2020. With the addition of Joe Schobert, it allowed Myles Jack to move to his traditional position where he was awesome early in his career, right? He moves back there, and what do you know? He's fantastic. Myles Jack has elite athleticism. He's proven that. He also has elite instincts, and he's just a baller. He's noticeable on this defense. He's perhaps the best player on this defense, and Myles Jack, to me, can play in just about any scheme on a off-the-ball sensibility. Myles Jack is the forgotten young stud of this position, and he comes in here just outside the top 10. Entering the top 10. At number 10, DeMario Davis of the New Orleans Saints. DeMario Davis, to me, is excellent when it comes to taking on blockers head first, creating a tackle for loss, and playing the run game. And he's also very, very underrated at creating pressure through blitzes and stunts, and the Saints rely on him a ton to do both of those things. He was very good at it with the Jets. He came over to New Orleans and nothing really changed despite a little bit of a scheme change. And Davis has proven just about in any system on any team, he's going to be a productive linebacker in this league. But he does know where he's not so good. He's not great in coverage. He's not great in space. That's not really his game. But if you keep him close to the line of scrimmage and allow him to make plays in those two facets, he's going to be a dominant player, and he's still probably going to be a dominant player in 2021. At number 9, Deion Jones of the Atlanta Falcons. Deion Jones has been one of my man crushes at the linebacker position for a very long time. If you're a long follower and a true BLVer, you'll know this, but Deion Jones, I've always loved his game because his speed is evident. It's all over the place whenever you turn an Atlanta Falcons game on, which you probably don't want to. But whenever you do, you'll notice Deion Jones flying from sideline to sideline. It's going to be real interesting to see how he transitions from a Seattle scheme to more of a Patriot Baltimore type scheme with Dean Pease coming to town instead of Dan Quinn. So I'm really intrigued to see how they utilize him. Maybe they'll utilize that speed as a blitzer a little bit more. We'll see how that works out. Maybe they'll utilize him close to the line of scrimmage, or maybe they'll make him a full-time coverage guy and a chess piece. We'll have to see how that works out, but I know that he's excellent in coverage because of that athleticism. The one thing I'll say about Deion Jones, yes, he's good versus the run. I wouldn't say he's superb, but I would say that he doesn't make a ton of game-changing plays. He doesn't sack the quarterback really, and maybe that's because of the scheme. He doesn't really create a lot of pressure because he doesn't really blitz, and I don't think that's his game. But he also doesn't really force fumbles or interceptions. So Deion Jones just recently, those areas impacting the game, game-changing play, that's maybe why he's a little bit lower than like some of these other elite guys, but he's definitely elite. There's no question. I just wanted to give you a reason why I have him a little bit lower than traditionally, but love the player. Think he's going to be awesome again as long as he can stay healthy. Atlanta's got a great linebacker. Dont'a Hightower, aka Mr. February. Now, to me, Dont'a Hightower is perhaps the most underrated linebacker of his generation, and that is because he is the most clutch linebacker of his generation, and that's also because the things that he does for the Patriots aren't very statistically noticeable, I guess. Now, you may look at his pressure stats, and that's pretty noticeable. He leads the league in pressure since he's entered the league, and he's missed multiple seasons since he's entered the league. But I feel like Dont'a Hightower does all the little things very, very well for New England. He's a very smart player. He's excellent as a blitzer. He's excellent as a rusher off the edge. You can move him to the edge and allow him to rush straight up like an edge player. You can also let him to set the edge if you want to. He can be that type of player where he can move inside or outside, and I think that speaks to his versatility and how good of a football player he is. Now, he's not the greatest in coverage, but that's okay because he's so good at everything else that it doesn't really matter. I also think he's one of the best at just taking centers and guards head on and just clogging up a hole and forcing a running back to go elsewhere in the run game. I think that's a big reason the Patriots weren't good versus the run, because they didn't have Dont'a Hightower, period. But they'll have him back in 2021. Hightower, to me, again, you notice his impact when he doesn't play. Another player just like this. You look at their two worst defenses in recent seasons, and I don't think it's a coincidence that Dont'a Hightower didn't play for either of those teams. At number 7, Bobby Wagner of the Seattle Seahawks, and immediately I'm going to get a lot of people saying, Mitch, you are an absolute idiot. All right, hear me out for a second. Bobby Wagner is not the best linebacker in the league, and he has not been the best linebacker in the league for like 2 to 3 years, and I don't really understand why people still think he is. Like, he's good and all, but I don't think he can do some of the things that the guys above him can do quite simply. I think you could argue that he's maybe number 6 or number 5, but I can't see him being as athletic or as impactful as some of the players above him. Sure, he's very smart, but I noticed a lot of areas where Bobby Wagner has regressed. He's obviously not as good in coverage. He's just not as fast, not as athletic. He doesn't take up as much space. Even though he reads the play expertly, he doesn't execute it expertly, if I said that right. Then Bobby Wagner was missing more tackles more often. Like, I watched that playoff game, Cam Akers made him look silly a lot of times. So Bobby Wagner, I feel, is kind of living a little bit off of his name and his past. Don't get me wrong, he's a Hall of Famer. He's arguably the best linebacker of this generation, but right now, he's not the best. He's still good. He's still good, especially versus the run, but he's not the greatest all around no longer. At number 6, Eric Kendricks of the Minnesota Vikings. Eric Kendricks is a phenomenal player, and I really have no problem with this game whatsoever. The only thing I'll say about Eric Kendricks, and the reason he's not in the top 5, is because maybe he's not as athletic as some of the guys in the top 5, where he kind of feasts more on his intelligence and his read and awareness for the game and his ability to react. And that really gets him a far ways, as he's excellent in coverage. He's proven that with his coverage stats consistently. And he's also good versus the run and can provide a little bit as a blitzer here and there to create pressure. But Eric Kendricks is a good all-around linebacker. I'd love him to have him on my team. I think he can play in just about any scheme. I just think the other guys above him are just a little bit better, to be honest. Entering the top 5, at number 5, Darius Leonard of the Indianapolis Colts. Darius Leonard is a very good football player. I felt like he took a step back last season after I thought he was maybe the best linebacker in the league a year ago, and I think people are a little bit late on that train, but I feel like at least he's getting some recognition nowadays. But he's a really athletic player. He's excellent in all facets of the game for the most part, most of the time. Last year, he wasn't as good in coverage. Okay, he gave up a lot more plays down the field, down the seam, down the middle of that cover 2 that they quite often play in Indianapolis, or cover 3. He was giving up some plays that typically he doesn't give up, but he's still excellent at creating forced fumbles, interceptions, game-changing sacks, game-changing hits. Darius Leonard is also smaller than I remember him to be, and I think that's hurt his game in the run game. So Leonard, I feel like I would like to see him add a little bit more size to his frame so he can come down in the box and take on those players. But we'll have to see how that works out. I think he's still really good. Without a doubt, he could end up back at number 1. I just think he declined a little this past season. At number 4, ROQUAN Smith of the Chicago Bears. Now, I'm a man, and I'll tell you when I'm wrong. And I was wrong about ROQUAN Smith. Or maybe I was ignorant to ROQUAN Smith's ability because I didn't take it seriously enough. And for those of you that told me this guy's excellent last year, I was wrong. I'll admit that. Let's move forward. ROQUAN Smith's a really good player. And I think you could argue in 2 to 3 years' time, him and another player will be head to head with who's the best linebacker in the league. Wait for the next one. ROQUAN Smith is really good. He's very fast. He can cover a lot of space very quickly. I think he's a better rusher and blitzer than I think he gets credit for. I think he's very good versus the run, and he improved a ton in coverage, although I do think he's maybe a little bit worse than his coverage stats indicate. I think he is really good when given the opportunity to cover. So ROQUAN Smith really doesn't have any holes in his game at this moment. He's just maybe not as talented as 1 or 2 of the guys above him, and he just hasn't proven it as long. But he's an excellent player and probably going to be one of the best linebackers in this league for a very long time. At number 3, Devin White of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, for the people that say Devin White is not an elite linebacker, I quite honestly don't know if you've ever watched a Tampa Bay Buccaneers game in your entire life. Devin White, to me, when I watch him, looks like 1990s Ray Lewis. The guy is a freaking animal. Like, he's everywhere. He is... I know I said Zach Cunningham is technically the best run defender in the league, but Devin White is... You just have to watch him to understand his impact on the game. He's everywhere. Like, everywhere on every play. And I think he's the reason, him and Vita Vea, why the Bucs are the best run defense in the league. Because when he's on the field, you are not running to the sideline. Like, forget it. Just don't do it. Forget it. Don't do it. Forget it. Okay? You also can try to run up the middle, but you're either going to run into Sue, Vea, or White's going to smack you in the face. So to me, Devin White combines absolutely vicious play. Like, he is the most vicious, aggressive linebacker in the league, but he's also the fastest linebacker in the league, and he combines that speed with that impact. He hits you real hard, and he hits you on every play. I've never seen this guy take a play off, especially in the run game. It's ridiculous. He's an excellent blitzer. He gets pressure constantly. I think he had 9 sacks, and I believe he missed a game. So Devin White is absurd in those 2 areas of the game. If you're just talking about run defense and blitzing and pressure, he's the best linebacker in the league. The only reason he's not number 1 is because he's not great in coverage, but he's good. He's solid. And I think he's gotten better with every game he plays. So if you look back at those playoffs, he was really good in coverage for the most part. And I think because they have LAVONTE David, he's not really asked to coverage in the same ways that LAVONTE David is. So that also maybe moves him a spot down because he's not asked to do absolutely everything for a defense, but no player should be. But I think he eventually will be. Devin White is phenomenal. Just stop listening to the people that tell you he's not, because they're absolutely blind. They don't know what they're talking about. At number 2, LAVONTE David of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Hey, we got 2 Tampa Bay Buccaneers back to back. LAVONTE David is all around a phenomenal football player, and to me, a Hall of Fame player, and I think he secured that with the Super Bowl victory, along with just being in the spotlight a little bit more. People are starting to recognize his name a little bit more. It's absolutely a joke that this guy only has like 1 All-Pro to his name, because he's consistently been one of the best linebackers in the league for the last decade. But you guys understand LAVONTE David. He's one of the few players in the NFL that really doesn't have any weaknesses to his game. He's at least good in every area that he plays at his position. And he's good really in everything, right? So zone coverage, man coverage, run defense, blitzing if you need, pressure if you need. Overall IQ is one of the highest at this position, and leadership is phenomenal as well. LAVONTE David does not have a flaw. He is a perfect football player. The only reason I don't have him at number 1 is because he's not the game-changing weapon that the number 1 guy is, in my opinion. At number 1, Fred Warner. The reason Fred Warner is my number 1 linebacker entering 2021 is because he is absolutely special when it comes to coverage. He is a difference maker and a chess piece at the linebacker position that I don't think any other player is. You can put him on players and lock them down, right? In coverage. There's no other linebacker that can say they can do that, in my opinion, right? You can line him up on a tight end. He'll do a really good job. And it doesn't matter who the tight end is. He'll do a good job. You can put him on the running back and lock him down. You can even line him up on slot receivers and he'll run the route for them. Fred Warner is the best coverage player and the biggest chess piece in that regard. And because the pass game is the area that impacts the sport the most, that is why Fred Warner is the best for me. He's good versus the run. He doesn't really blitz a ton because that's not the scheme he's in. He's very smart. He has provided that he is a good leader. I just think this guy is awesome and the modern linebacker in this league. So Fred Warner, to me, is the best linebacker in the league. You could certainly argue there are others. You could pick your poison of the type of player you like, and that's perfectly fine. But for me, my poison is Fred Warner. So let me know in the comment section below who you think is the best linebacker in the NFL. Who is it? Thanks for watching. It's Mitch. Check out the rest of my rankings in the playlist. Make sure you check out Patreon for number 21 through number 32 at the linebacker position, as well as the defensive line and edge positions. Peace.